Hello, my name is Chef Marcus Burek. Thanks for joining us today. We are today going to learn how to use a chef's knife. We're actually going to learn how to make certain cuts with vegetables. The reason we are going to do that is there are times where you're making things where you don't want to just have what they call a rough chop, and I'm going to show you that in a second. But you want things to be precisely chopped or cut so it looks good in your dish. You may be garnishing with it. You may be having it in a consomme, which I'll show you how to make here in segments to come, where that is a clear soup, but what makes the garnish is the vegetables that are in it. So you want precise cuts. So today what I'm going to do is show you some precise cuts so you know how to do that. Plus you could be a little fancy in front of your friends and show off just a little bit. So first off, what we're going to do is just a rough chop. A rough chop, and what this also, by the way, what this is going to do is show you in recipes when it says small dice, large dice, julienne, things like that. When you see that, you'll know what those cuts are and you'll know how to do it. Instead of going to magazines or books or online and having to look up what those certain cuts are, you could just go to our website and find out. So these are rough chops. It's nothing precise. This would go in a stock or something to season, something you may strain out, or you may puree this. It doesn't have to be precise. Most soups, if you are going to puree that soup, it doesn't have to be a precise cut. I always like, when I'm learning new things, take the time to make the right kind of dice, or just practice things, julienne something. The cooking backgrounds basically come from France, so there is a lot of French terms to these certain dices, such as julienne, bâtonnet, oblique cuts, chiffonade, different things like that. I myself, I don't think, talking chef to chef, that's sometimes how we speak. We'll use those because we know what we're talking about. And you could show off a little bit in front of your friends, but they might just be like, you're a show off. What does that mean? And they're going to ask you anyway. So easiest way of saying, this is a thin slice, this is a small dice, this is a large, a larger slice, different things like that. But I'm going to walk you through this right now and I'll show you how it's done. Okay. Right now, what we're going to do is a small dice with celery. I'll show you with onion as well. Basically with celery, always make sure it's manageable to use. Now, what you want to make sure is you have your celery cut into sticks. You need to look at these sticks now and make sure, are they all uniform? Are they all going to make a uniform cut? This one's a little large, so I want to cut this in half. And I just want to make sure through all this that they're all the same size. These are all the same size. So in the other segment, I was showing you ways to practice your knife technique, maybe putting in a flour going across. This is where this will come in. You want to take your celery, line it up perfectly, and then make your precise cuts. You could use the rolling technique, which is in the other segment. And now you have a very uniform dice, which all looks the same, which will be very nice when you put it into a soup or some type of garnish. Now, a very neat way of cutting an onion. People always wonder, and I see tons of people doing this. Cleaning the onion, and then, oh, I need diced onions. This is what they do. I see it all the time. And you're not going to get a uniform dice no matter how you're going to have a mince before you have a nice dice. As you can see here, there's all different sized onions to that. That is not a nice chop, okay? So what we're going to do is I will show you. If you have your onion, I'll take another half. What you're going to do is just take out this outer layer, discard that or put it in your compost, especially if you're doing your own gardening, which is a great idea. And then I've taken off both sides of this, and then what I want to do is I'm just going to make small slices in here. Now be very, very careful with this, because a lot of people and myself, this is where you cut your thumb because you're holding on like this. So make sure you're using the proper technique. The thumb is behind. Okay? Then what you're going to do is just come across. Make sure these lines are the same width apart. Make sure these lines are the same width apart. Then all you're going to do is come across. And there you have it. You have a perfect dice on all that. Now it's all uniform and a perfect garnish. So those are dice. That on the last would be a medium dice. Then if you wanted a small dice on an onion, what you would do, what I like to do sometimes is put it up like this. It's a little bit easier to manage. You want to get the lines that you're cutting closer together. You're going to put that down. And then you're going to come across, and these lines cutting across are going to be closer together. Now you have a very fine dice, but uniform. So, those are the proper ways with an onion of making a large dice and a small dice. It could be done the same way with carrots. This could be done with potatoes, anything of a harder vegetable. What I like to do, just take off a little sliver for safety reasons, place that down sideways. Now you have a stable surface to work with. Now I'm going to make a small dice out of these carrots. I want the exact same coming across. I hold the last piece like that so it doesn't slip either way. Then what I like to do is just stack it back up. Don't stack it 50 high because then it's going to wobble everywhere. Make it a manageable stack. You're going to come across the other direction. Put those all together, and then the other direction. Then you have a nice small dice. That could be done with anything that's a little tougher, a potato, parsnips, anything like that. Then you have the other side here, and you can do the same thing with that. Now if I wanted to make a little bit of a larger dice, I just move this a little bit. And now you have a little bit of a larger dice, but all uniform. So there you go. You have a large dice, a small dice, and that is how you do that. Now there is the chiffonade. Well, first off, let's show you the oblique cut. I like the oblique cut. This is a fun cut. This is something a little bit different. All you do is you cut, so it's almost looking like a triangle. You cut it on a diagonal, and then you take your carrot, flip it all the way over 100 degrees. Then you cut the same way. Take your carrot, flip it over 100 degrees. And that is an oblique cut. So it's a fun cut. It has a different style. Really good to make these. Blanch them a little bit. Do a honey glazed carrot, a little bit of honey, butter. Toss your carrots in there, a little salt and pepper. Your guests will love them. Then we have the chiffonade. I use that word a lot because I think it sounds pretty cool. Chiffonade. So chiffonade is either a leafy vegetable or herbs. What you're going to do is I try to get this as tight as I possibly can. This works really, really well on basil. And then basically it's a ribbon cut. So what you're looking for is these ribbons, and that is a chiffonade. Then you have your chopped parsley. When something in your recipe calls for a chopped parsley, that would be a rough chop parsley. This would be a fine chop parsley. And you know as well as I do, make sure you always wash your herbs and vegetables and everything that you're cutting first, so it's not all over your cutting board. But you just want to push everything together, scrape it off your knife. Make sure you scrape it off your knife. A lot of people forget that that stuff is stuck to your knife, and a lot of the big pieces stick up there. And now you have a finely chopped parsley. This looks really good for garnish. If you want to sprinkle it around the plate, as you can see, it really looks nice. You could do that with basil, rosemary. Rosemary is very, very easy. Another leafy vegetable. This would work with basil for the chiffonade. Again, what I do is I just take all the leaves, kind of bunch them all together. You could do it with cabbage or whatever. This is a pineapple sage. And then you have your ribbons, which is, again, is a very nice garnish for the top. And then, of course, you have your rosemary. A lot of times you want this chopped. The reason a lot of the recipes call for chopped, rough chop or whatever, basically when you're chopping it, you're letting out all the aromatics of this. All the nice flavor from this is inside those leaves. So you're opening those leaves and letting whatever your soups or sauces or stocks get into that. So these are just different ways of cutting and slicing. It's really, really fun. If you know, even if you're doing something that's going to be pureed, practice these techniques and put them into your stocks. And the more you practice, the better you're going to get. You could start garnishing with these different things, and you'll find a lot of different techniques of doing different things the way you like to do it. Get crazy. There's a lot of ways that we used to garnish. We would take apples, put them on a peeler, one of those rotisserie peelers, and just peel them up and put that on top. We would take sweet potatoes and fry them real quick, put those on top of food to garnish it. So always keep in mind of garnishing is what people eat. They're going to see that first. They're going to see the garnish. It's going to be pleasing to the eye. And when something's pleasing to the eye and it's food, it's usually, hopefully you can get the two components, one pleasure to the eye and one pleasure to the tongue. And that's what we're really working on. I hope you enjoyed this segment. Hope you learned a lot from it. If you have any questions, please look at our other segments or email us, and I'll get those answered as soon as we can.